No matter how fast you are, Sonic, you can't outrun the law. Okay, you probably could, to be honest, but let's pretend. Today, we're sentencing the characters from the Sonic cinematic universe, including the Knuckles series, for their crimes. And we've got to go fast through these guys, so let's start with Earth's lovable space creature himself, Sonic. And let's start with the most obvious crime on his record, speeding. Like, come on, it's Sonic. We wouldn't mention it as a crime if it weren't for the fact that he tends to run past speed traps on purpose to check his speed. Of course, Tom and Wade aren't going to give him any trouble for it, but if he crosses the right cop on the wrong day, he might end up with a speeding ticket. And he can be reckless too. Take the bar fight scene from the first movie, for example.
Am I crazy? You're supposed to break, right?
Here, he's guilty of assault due to starting off the massive bar fight by hitting this impressively hard-headed thug with a bottle. And on top of that, he and Tom don't pay their bill,
So should we get out of here?
which adds a dine and dash charge to his record.
We even pay our tip. It doesn't matter.
We should also throw in a more serious charge of disturbing the peace due to him causing a massive power outage, which was serious enough to turn the government itself against him. And finally, by the second movie, Sonic has grown into his role as a hero, but not gracefully. Reckless driving is what we're talking about, but wait, why does Sonic need to drive? In any case, his efforts to stop a robbery, although successful,
Good evening, gentlemen. Mind if I drive?
endanger the lives of many civilians and cause quite a bit of property damage in the process.
You're a terrible hero!
And lastly, there's his time on his own during the Wachowskis' vacation, at which point he used one of his rings to shoplift some snacks from a convenience store. Like, couldn't you have just teleported some money there too? Now, for a sentence, let's remember that Sonic is still just a kid, and also he saved the world from certain destruction, so we have to give him a break. But all that destruction warrants some action, so we'll sentence Sonic to 15 hours of community service. But let's talk about the other main character of the first movie, Tom Wachowski. While he's definitely a good guy, we can't be fooled. Tom isn't always as by the books as you'd expect an officer of the law to be. Going back to the bar, Tom holds more responsibility for both the bar fighting and the dine and dash charges. And speaking of his time with Sonic, harboring an alien is also on the table. Sure, in the movies themselves, Tom is just being kind-hearted and basically adopting a superpowered kid who didn't have any other family. But if we look at it objectively, he is technically lying to the government, which I suppose could even constitute treason at the worst.
Oh, you mean the little blue guy? No, nothing. Doubt we'll ever hear from him again.
For shame, Tom. The man gives you an Olive Garden gift card and this is how you repay him? But he may get some leniency for just how useful Sonic's been as a hero so far. And that leaves just one aspect of Tom's character to talk about, his treatment of his sister-in-law, Rachel. We could basically call Tom guilty of kidnapping her, considering he basically forced his way into her home, saw her faint at the sight of Sonic, and tied her up so she wouldn't get in the way of helping him. We definitely get it, but come on, you just left her there? Y'all really decided it was okay to leave this woman tied to a chair for presumably days? And later on, he assaults Rachel's fiance Randall at their wedding, which turned out to be a front by the government to get their hands on Sonic. For the sentence, since Tom is Sonic's guardian, we can assume that he's going to be taking the brunt of whatever Sonic screws up, especially with him being an officer of the law. The whole harboring an alien thing is more of an adopting a dangerous child thing now, so he probably won't have to worry about that. Just damage control, if anything. And as such, we sentence Tom Wachowski to 6 months probation. And on that note, let's give a quick visit to Rachel. She only has one crime under her belt, but it is a big one. Attempted murder. Yeah, after her wedding was not only totally ruined, but was revealed to be staged by the government.
Then I find Randall, right? And then I squeeze the breath from his lying, deceitful, perfectly manscaped body.
Rachel goes ballistic and uses a golf cart to run over tables, decorations, and seems perfectly open to the idea of running over Randall. She also holds a government agent at gunpoint, just in case that first half wasn't enough to convince you.
Looks like it's real, huh?
For the sentence, Rachel's crime is very serious, but looking at it contextually, we can't help but sympathize a bit. It's clear she was in an agitated emotional state, which definitely contributed to her breakdown. Nonetheless, we are going to sentence her to 1 year in jail and mandatory anger management counseling. Your feelings are valid, but attempted murder, not so much. But let's get to Sonic's two-tailed bestie, Tails. Tails has by far the least crimes out of the main alien trio. He's guilty, first and foremost, of hitting Knuckles with a car. Yeah, it's one of those driving misdemeanors people slip up with. Jaywalking, speeding, hitting echidnas. But why would Tails do this? To save the life of his hero, Sonic the Hedgehog. Which I guess leads to his other crime. Tails basically stalked Sonic in order to find and befriend him, to the point where he knew the exact type of bathing habits he preferred.
Wait, so you've been watching me this whole time? Even in the shower?
Which, I mean, come on, Tails. That's a bit weird. That said, for the sentence, because nobody was particularly mad over what he did, we're going to acquit Tails on all charges. But we will advise him to be on the lookout for Knuckles' inevitable revenge. Real quick, let's talk about Wade. He's not as smart or outwardly heroic as Tom, but Wade makes up for it with a heart of gold and pure intentions to match.
Thank you.
That said, he still destroyed government property with his botched plan to rescue Knuckles. So his sentence is going to be to replace the vehicle, since, you know, he kind of broke it in the first place. And we'll briefly mention his sister, Wanda. Really, she's realistically one of the least likely to face any punishment for her crimes. After all, she's an FBI agent, which means she has a lot of authority and connections. But she does assault her own brother by stabbing him with a fork at the dinner table.
Oh, I got it!
So we're just gonna sentence Wanda to 1 year of mandatory anger management classes, because she really needs them. But now it's time for the moment we've all been waiting for. Next up on the docket is Knuckles. If you thought having power and anger issues was a dangerous combo for Wanda, Knuckles exponentially increases that danger. Knuckles is immensely powerful, just as he's immensely devoted to protecting the people he cares for. This leads to several counts of aggravated assaults, such as when he attacked the construction workers in the very first episode of his spin-off series to protect the Wachowski family. Reckless endangerment and destruction of property are second nature for Knuckles, and he causes no shortage of destruction despite his good deeds.
It looks like Knuckles built part of his throne out of our car.
But here's the thing with Knuckles. While he is incredibly impulsive, strong, and reckless, he isn't actively trying to hurt anyone. That is, unless they're out to hurt him or someone he cares about. As such, we have to sentence Knuckles to mandatory anger management classes and human culture classes. This way he can hopefully learn and avoid future destruction. But okay, let's talk about the real villains, starting with Jack Sinclair. Right off the bat, Jack is a bounty hunter.
I lied to you about the stretch Hummer. We just don't want you there.
Bounty hunting is a real profession, but it requires certification, and they definitely don't have their own business cards.
Captured.
He is.
So Jack's profession is less of an altruistic thing and more of a spree of kidnapping, extortion, and attempted murder. There's the obvious factor of him keeping Wade in an electrical cage, but we can't help but wonder if Susie's parents are actually okay with being here. They seemed pretty nervous during that ride. After getting his butt handed to him by Wade and his leather jacket handed to Wade, Jack showed his true colors by running away like a wuss.
Finish him, Wade.
There's no real hint of remorse with this guy. We're sure he'll find a less determined victim to terrorize next. So to play it safe, we sentence Jack to 5 to 10 years in state prison. Oh, and do something about that new hairdo guy. Moving closer to the main conflict of the season, we now have Agents Willoughby and Mason. These two were gun agents, each for their own reason. Willoughby for the sake of protecting the planet from aliens, and Mason for the sake of beating up aliens. I mean, we all have our hobbies. But when the organization does them dirty, they double-cross it and go underground, with the intention to track down Knuckles and sell his power on the black market.
Do I look like I need your power?
What are you talking about? Of course we need his power. It's the whole reason we're here, to get his power and sell it for lots and lots of money.
I know that.
This is a very serious offense, and we'd have to say it constitutes treason. And that's awful already, but it actually gets worse. In their quest to get a hold of Knuckles and to keep Wade and company from rescuing Knuckles, Willoughby and Mason engage in attempted murder, destruction of property, kidnapping, and extortion. For the sentence, while protecting their lives is definitely a sympathetic motive, it doesn't even come close to justifying the bulk of what these guys do. So we're gonna have to sentence Willoughby and Mason to 20 years in federal prison. Now, for our last villain of the Knuckles series, we have the Buyer. Once employed by Dr. Robotnik, he now works underground out of the government's line of sight. So right away, we've got treason, black market weapons dealing, and even mass destruction as a result of that final battle. On top of all that, we've got to move back to his blackmailing of Willoughby and Mason. Sure, those two are major criminals themselves, but blackmail is a truly serious crime.
Now, your only reward will be your lives.
as it allows the perpetrator to do some truly heinous things without having to get their hands dirty. For our sentence, we won't beat around the bush here. As long as the buyer is even remotely a free man, he's going to be making machines of intense power that would rival even Dr. Eggman's. And he even has the added bonus of a semi-stable mental state. So we sentence him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And we need to find something to do with those weapons, so maybe sell them and donate to a charity for hedgehogs with damaged shoes. Down to 2 characters, and the first is perhaps the Sonic Cinematic Universe's biggest simp, Agent Stone. Stone is really just Smithers from The Simpsons in a different universe. He's obsessed with his master, waiting eagerly for his return and being desperate to serve him however he possibly can. Aiding Dr. Eggman in his various acts of crime is really as far as his criminal record goes. And we might have had a bit of a devil's advocate thinking that Stone could be a decent enough guy when Eggman isn't around.
Doctor! Take me with you!
But as it turns out, when Eggman is gone, Stone is just all the more desperate for him to return.
Doctor, where are you?
And as a result, our sentence for Stone is 10 years in prison and intensive psychotherapy. Just why is this man so thirsty for Dr. Robotnik? Until we answer that question, there's truly nothing we can do to help him. But we've saved the best, meaning worst, for last. If you know one thing about Sonic villains, you know that evil grows in Dr. Robotnik. Man, how ironic that this unstable scientist who was hired specifically to track down a potential supernatural terrorist ended up becoming one himself. As he reveals in the second movie, Robotnik not only wants to simply eradicate humanity, no, he wants to enslave all of humanity and force them to service his machines. He uses any authority the government gives him to snatch every last bit of power he can.
You mentioned ultimate power.
Showing no regard for human life and proving himself to be a truly heartless being. So let's go through every crime he has under his belt, roughly from least to most egregious. There's trespassing on Tom's property, which quickly escalated to threatening an officer, even going as far as assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder, mass destruction, terrorism, abuse of government power, the very unique charge of attempted worldwide domination and enslavement, and global conspiracy. So Robotnik has quite the criminal rap sheet. For our sentence, Robotnik really is one of those truly, delightfully pure evil villains we all love to see get beaten up. As long as he's around, he's going to be one of humanity's greatest threats. So from a legal standpoint, we have to sentence Robotnik to death by electric chair.
I was not expecting that. But I was expecting not to expect something, so it doesn't count.
Which is kind of ironic. I mean, the guy who worships machines being taken out by one. That is to say, this is all from a legal standpoint. From a personal standpoint, man, he's just way too funny to kill off.